Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 380. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensational sensei of the whatnot Segulant, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking about Justice League War and Green Arrow, the Arrow TV show. I keep wanting to throw green in front of it, even though they don't. Arrow, the TV show, through Season 2, Episode 13. It's the most current episode, and it's the one, Heir to the Demon episode. So if you haven't watched up through that, you're going to want to wait till we get to the Arrow segment to make sure you get caught up on that. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, they've got a February 2014 DC bundle. This has all 5 of the new titles, including Batman Eternal #1, Secret Origins #1, Aquaman and the Others #1, Sinestro #1, Justice League United #0. The regular price on these books is $17.95. They're 50% off, only $8.97 at DCBService.com. So if you're interested in trying any of these books or you just want to see what they're like, these bundles, DCB Service is doing this more and more often, where for a few months they will put these bundles together because you got to pre-order a couple months in advance. So you can get them at half off, try the books out for a few issues, and then decide which books are for you. So it's great. They also are a digital partner. If you are using Comixology or you are using mydigitalcomics.com, if you connect those accounts to your DCB Service account, you earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB Service order. That adds up really quick if you do a lot of digital purchasing. It doesn't cost you anything more, but it gives you credit, which is great. A few bucks here, a few bucks there helps all of us. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have the Planetary Omnibus. This is Planetary 1 through 27, Planetary Batman #1, Planetary JLA #1, and Planetary Authority #1. This is 864 pages. It's a $75 book. It's 45% off, only $41.25. Warren Ellis, John Cassaday, colorist David Barron, who's a friend of the show. It's just an amazing opportunity to pick up that book in one large volume. And that $41.25 price actually almost puts you at the $50 mark that gives you free shipping. But that 45% off for me is a lot of times the difference between purchasing a hardcover and a trade when I'm trying to keep up with my monthly titles. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the movies and TV show we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't seen them, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I'm amazed at your voice right now because of the fact that for this whole week, my voice has been weaving in and out. I'm so glad you'll hear me actually on the episode multiple times drinking things because I'm trying to keep my voice together for this episode because I'm really excited to talk about this content. So let's start by talking about Justice League War.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
Jim, after a week where I was pretty sick, it's nice to be able to be back and finally recording to talk about Justice League War. I actually had a chance to watch this again because of that, and not because I had to. I liked this that much. It was the first foray for DC into the New 52, and I found this to be just really an exciting viewing. How about you? What was it like for you? Because we haven't really had a chance to talk about impressions of it, other than how to get it, because you had that problem initially. I had gotten it on iTunes, which I didn't realize it released earlier on iTunes. So in your case, how was it viewing this? What did you think of this whole thing? It's different because it's the New 52 versions.
Well, first off, we got to make sure we're calling it by its proper name. It's not just Justice League War. It's Justice League War. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Yeah.
You know, nobody would buy that.
I think that would be a huge marketing thing. You just have someone sitting there singing that while it's going on. That'd be awesome.
This is why you're not in marketing.
True. That is true. my experience with War was very interesting because this is, again, one of those reasons why watching something multiple times is a really neat experience. Because when I first went through it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's kind of neat. But I had little nitpicking stuff and little parts. I was like, I don't know about that. And second, third watch through, because I've seen it 3 times now. And every time I'm seeing it, I'm seeing why they made this choice as opposed to this choice. Why? And by the third watch through, it's really an enjoyable thing for me because I'm comfortable with these characters. I'm comfortable with how they're handling it. I'm comfortable with the voices. It's, so I'm definitely, it's marked for a yes, this was cool. And looking forward to more of the new universe. Definitely looking forward to Batman and his son. That movie when it comes out. So it's a very positive charge, but the process getting there, it wasn't like I watched it the first time and said, oh my God, this is amazing. I was like, okay, yeah, but why'd they have to go that route? Why'd they have to do that? But
really,
as you see it a couple times, you get why they made the choices they made, and you kind of, I liked it and respected it. I was like, okay, this isn't just a story to tell a story. There's reasonings they went with these different plot stories and plot twists.
Now it basically was the Jeff Johns, Jim Lee New 52 version, with the exception of Aquaman. I mean, might as well talk about that because that was really the major change. Otherwise, it's the same story that was in the graphic novel.
Yeah. Oh, and I tell you, when initially started, that was something I was like, what? When I realized that Aquaman wasn't in it and that they were putting Shazam in, I was like, oh man, really? But again, second watch through, you really get to see Billy just being Billy and being Billy in the Shazam outfit. And I started enjoying the comedic moments he brought, but they weren't like goofy slapstick, moments that take you out of the action. There's just that nice level of comedy, nice area of fun that really added to the drama, added to the excitement of the story. So I was like, Billy, not including Aquaman, was one of those things where from the beginning, but by second and third watching, especially seeing Diana. We had this very powerful warrior, princess, diplomat, whatnot, that was Diana. If we had had another regal type of character in there, it could have taken away from each other. By putting Billy in there, it made it a nice balance between the different heroes, each bringing their own thing to the story.
Now, you watched the end credits, right?
Which end credits?
There's only the end credits for Justice League War. What do you mean, what end credits?
Well, I didn't know if
Aquaman's coming, right?
What?
You know Aquaman's coming in the next one, right?
I did not watch. You
did not watch the end credits. So there's a big teaser too. They're doing the Justice League storyline. It's going to probably be after Batman and Son. There was a teaser in there showing Ocean Master coming out with the Dead King, saying that basically they're going to do the Atlantis attack on Earth, the next storyline that was in the Justice League. They didn't hint at when, but you're gonna have to watch it again because there's a whole teaser at the end. It's short. It's a very, very quick thing, but it was Ocean Master coming out. No Aquaman, but I mean, obviously, the intention would be that feature would spotlight Aquaman.
Yeah, once the credits started rolling, I just hit stop. I didn't, because to be honest, I didn't think they would do a credit teaser on a released DVD. So apparently, I'm gonna have to start watching the end credits.
Yeah. They had it's cool. It was very, very short. Not 30 seconds at the most, but it was just enough to basically go, okay, this is what they're doing with Aquaman. So he's gonna be in the next one, and featured prominently because they're doing that Atlantis storyline that Jeff Johns did.
Oh,
so
cool.
That's cool.
So, again, I'm definitely looking forward to that, seeing how that plays out now. So it's going to be interesting to see when them doing that story, because there was such a high body count of civilians, and just collateral damage in that. When they flooded, they flooded Gotham, they flooded a couple different cities, and so you got a high body count. Are they going to shy away from that, or is it just going to be commented on but not actually seeing the dead bodies? And
why they aren't these movies? They haven't. They're not G-rated or anything.
True, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to have dead floating bodies. Is what I'm thinking. I don't think we're going to see floating dead bodies like we did in the comic.
I think we're going to see exactly what we saw in the comic book. I don't. There's nothing in these direct to animated movie releases that would have me indicate that they wouldn't. because these don't seem to be marketed to kids. I mean, if you take a look at this one in particular, there was some language in this one that clearly showed that they're not marketing it just to kids. They're marketing it to a broader range audience. So, which I guess let's talk about that. Do you think that's the right route to go? Because you're bringing up an interesting point, how you're questioning whether or not they will cut down on that. Who do you think this is marketed to? And do you think they're making a right choice in who they're marketing it to? Let's talk about that, because you're bringing up an interesting topic, because you clearly are under the impression, and I'm not saying you're wrong for thinking that way, that there's things that would be toned down to appeal to that. But the language in this one in particular does not have me thinking that they're marketing to kids.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're marketing to kids. Mm-hmm. I think they're marketing to the people who read the comic, who they're marketing to comic fans. They're marketing to people who are fans of the comic book genre, but aren't actually comic book readers. You know, you got your diehard fans like us. You got your casual comic reader fans. And then you have the people who like the concept of superheroes. They like they go see Iron Man. They go see, Superman, Batman, but they don't actually collect the comics. I think that's who they're marketing to. So they're going to give you a good, solid story, and they're going to keep it true to the story, but there's going to be stuff they're going to limit. Like, think about when they released Batman Year One. They never showed Jim Gordon smoking, and they didn't market it to kids, but they never had those scenes in there. And there's a couple, scenes where he's going back and forth where, she lit the cigarette for him and all this stuff. I can still taste her, lipstick on the cigarette. But if you look at in the movie, they didn't include any of that stuff. Not Year One, Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, Year One.
Year One, right?
Yeah, okay. So they didn't really market it. Well, they're not saying they're marketing to children, but I think they're being conscious of different groups out there that will complain. I think if you have a cartoon where you got a bunch of dead bodies floating by, you're going to get a parental group or somebody complaining about that. So you can comment on how, 1 million people died. As long as you don't show the bodies, you're okay.
But jabbing a villain in the eye with a sword, and then hitting him in the eye with a crowbar? I guess I'm just saying, there was nothing about War that had me indicating that they were cutting out on gore. I don't think we're going to see gore for the sake of gore, but I don't know how you can do the Aquaman story without showing what you're mentioning. I don't think you need to go over top graphic. I didn't feel the comic went over the top graphic with it, though.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's shown for an illustrative purpose of, like, wow, look at just the sheer devastation. And I think they have to show that on some level. Maybe cut down on a little bit. I guess I don't know. I never thought that story was gory. So I don't remember the visual imagery of it being gory other than, oh, wow, look at the scale of this. And I think they're going to have to illustrate that scale the same way they did with Darkseid. I mean, to me, that Darkseid battle in this, I know I'm jumping to that, but I mean, you're making an interesting point about what visual violence you show, what gore you show. And I mean, I don't know. They took Wonder Woman's sword went right into his eye. I mean,
yeah, and I love that. I don't want anyone to even remotely think I'm saying, oh, they should cut it back for the children. I'm saying the exact opposite. I want them to follow what's in the book. And the level of gore, the level of death and destruction that's in the book, I want to see that in the movie. I'm just, one of the things that annoys me when, especially when, some of the more mature or adult comics or even just the general everyday comics are made, there's people, and I know it's conscious efforts on the parts of the people making this saying, oh, we got to be careful. We don't want to have this. And it's like, no, let the story be told that is being told. But, but it doesn't. I'm not going to sit here and complain the entire time, and not say, "Oh, it's not going to ruin it for me." It just, I'm curious if how they're going to handle it, how they're going to handle massive death, and that's something that, on top of seeing a cool story, it's little stuff like that I start thinking about.
After seeing that whole Darkseid fight, I have no worries about any of that. I think that they're going to handle it the same way they handled the Darkseid fight. They're going to show us what they need to show us.
Yeah.
I guess I look at this, and correct me if you think of this differently. I don't think these are marketed. I agree with you. I think this is marketed to more of a casual crowd as well as the comic book fan. But I think it's led to a certain age group, the group that be watching anime, manga, readers, things like that maybe would be interested in watching an animated version. People who saw Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, the Avengers movies, looking for that type of crowd. I think the Saturday morning offerings that we're getting out of DC Warner is more geared to an all ages crowd. And I want to be careful. I don't want to say a younger sect because I feel that there is a depth to the story that appeals to a broader audience, but clearly it's accessible and appropriate for a younger crowd, which is great. I don't think these are being marketed to that. I think that it's important for them as a company, and I would take this out of being DC Entertainment and just say across comics in general. I think there needs to be a way of branding and marketing so people know what is family friendly and what is not. From a very selfish standpoint, I like a story like Justice League War where we see the kind of stuff we saw in that Darkseid battle. Now, on the other hand, if I had a younger child, I think on a parent-by-parent basis, knowing your child and what kind of communication that you have with your child, I think this movie could be appropriate with being watched with an adult's, supervision. I think, to me, the PG rating, I saw PG movies as a kid. I usually saw, I'm talking about when I was really young, usually saw those with an adult, before I was old enough to go to movies myself. And, if there was questionable content in there, that was dealt with me by my family as needed. I think that's part of a hands-on parenting experience as far as, is war appropriate for every child? No, it's not meant to be. This is basically meant to be a strong adaptation of the graphic novel. I think to do anything less and I don't see any reason why they would do anything less with the Aquaman story. Basically, that Darkseid battle locked me in on that.
Yeah,
because that was a very graphic battle. I mean, there's no two ways about that. I mean, they didn't sugarcoat what happened to Darkseid there.
And I agree. I loved that battle, and I got it. There was when she first, took out his one eye. I was like, oh, wow. That was pause it, rewind a little bit, and rewatch that again. And then Barry was the one that really kind of surprised me because Barry takes a crowbar and, smashes the other eye. Now, the thing that got me about that, and the thing I loved about saying that was just because of, Barry's nature and who Barry is. And he's not the Amazon warrior. Like with Diana, made perfect sense. With Barry, I was like, wow. And it added to the whole monumental of the moment that I was like, damn, that's cool.
We clearly had a different experience because my first watch through, it wasn't until about halfway through it that I realized Aquaman wasn't there. And that's not an insult to the character or the way that he was brought into the story. I love Aquaman. I think he's an amazing character. But I'm such a fan of Captain Marvel, Shazam, as well, that I was really glad to see him on the big screen in this. And I did notice immediately, though, that wait, he wasn't in the main story. This is when they were doing the backup, introducing him gradually. Somewhere, I don't remember what issue that exactly started, but that was what was going on with this character. And I thought it was a great way. What I liked about him being brought in was him being this kid who looked up to Vic Stone. Victory, victory, victory. Yeah. And also for Vic, being somebody who could relate to Vic and what Vic was going through. Because in many ways, Captain Marvel, because of his age and the fact that it is this young kid inside an adult body, he's kind of a fish out of water. He looks up to Vic, even though he's Captain Marvel there in those moments. And I'm going to keep calling it Shazam, but it's that character. Even though he's Shazam and he's this all-powerful guy, he's still got that sense of wonder when he was looking at him. And he really helps Vic connect with this team and connect with his humanity and see his potential role. That part of the story, to me, Justice League War, one of the pivotal parts of it is showing who Cyborg is and making us as readers believe that he belongs on the Justice League. I think that's a critical part of this storyline, because you're taking somebody before who was a B-list character, and that's no insult to him, he just was, and you've pumped him up into the A-list. He's now a part of the big string team. And I think that was something that this did very, very well. And I think the choice of removing Aquaman was smart here and saying, let's do him in another Justice League feature where we really bring him in, spotlight his origin. They can really do some cool things with Aquaman in a Justice League one that focuses on that Atlantis war that you can't do here with him. Don't, lack of being a pun, don't water it down with Aquaman. And I really didn't mean to go there.
It's a fishy comment.
Yeah. I really didn't mean to go there with it, but we talk about watering down characters. You don't want to sit there and try to introduce too many. I thought that they spotlighted in a unique way Barry Allen. I thought they did it with Hal Jordan. They did it with Batman, they did it with Superman, they did it with Wonder Woman, and they did it with Shazam and Cyborg. And I don't know in this storyline with how, because I felt this was a very tight feature. They spotlighted all those characters, still manages to spotlight Darkseid and make him feel like he was this awesome power, which that has been a strength of the New 52 to me. They've taken villains who, over time, for lack of overusing this, have gotten watered down and haven't felt like this cosmic power, and they made us feel in this one that Darkseid could take on the Justice League, because realistically they didn't kill Darkseid, they didn't imprison Darkseid. What they did was they pushed him back to his world. That to me was, wow, he kept coming when he was blind. I mean, that was impressive as can be.
Oh god, yeah, that's power levels right there. And I think I want to say it was Barry who actually made a comment like that about how he's still fighting, even though he's blind. That just shows you just the level that Darkseid. That was something I was glad to see, that we got this just massive, massive destruction to the Force, because this was a major invasion. This was an absolute, should have been an extinction level event. We should have completely been wiped off the planet, but there was the Justice League. And that, you need to have that level of massive villain, that massive undertaking, that during the movie you're sitting there going, there's no way they can win this. There's no way they could do this. This is it. It's over. And then you see them step up. You see them go beyond what would be expected, even though, yeah, in a comic book movie, you expect the good guys to win, but there is still, just because of the sheer power they're facing, the sheer just overwhelming odds they were facing, there was doubt in the mind. I think that, for me, was the thing I loved the most about Darkseid, especially thinking, okay, when does Darkseid come back? When are they going to bring him back? When are they going to have round 2? And how is that going to play out?
Yeah, it brings a question at the end of this one. Did they win or did they hold him off? Because they basically agreed at the end that they've closed off all the boom tubes, destroyed the devices. So for now, there's no way for him to get back, for now. But they recognize the fact that if he came over here once, he can do it again. And I like that. I mean, that ending gave this sense of power to the villain. And there's something to that, because I didn't feel like it took away any of the heroic strength of the heroes. If anything, it made them more heroic for me, especially on their first outing. It showed why they needed to be together. Because sometimes you get a story where it's like, okay, and why do we need all of them? There's usually one or two guys that you're like, they're sitting off to the side, and you're like, did they really need to be there? I felt like every member of the Justice League, like they needed all of them and more.
Yeah, they needed all of them to win that fight. Mm-hmm. That was, again, just a really cool moment. But the one character, because you kind of commented on Cyborg, that I really, really enjoyed in this movie was the fact that they really went in depth into his origin. Everybody else, they really didn't say their origin. It's basically assumed you would know what the Green Lantern Corps is, what the Flash is, Batman, Superman, etc. But with Cyborg, they broke down and showed his origin, and it tied directly into the story, so it made it really fit as to how they're using it. So it didn't feel like a flashback, throwback, or just thrown in there for story. It's all connected in with the story, so that made it wonderful. But I was really happy that we did get to see that again for the non-comic book reader. The people who may not know who Cyborg is. They may not know anything about the guy. Now they've got the origin. Now they've got the character. They understand who he is, and they can see what this guy's coming from. And it was something that I was very happy with his portrayal in the movie.
What I like, amen to everything you just said, because I think he is the least likely to be known. out of all of them. And there was a need to really justify the importance of the character of this team, and I thought did a really good job with that. He feels like a very modern character with the storytelling as well. And I actually quite liked the art styling in this, because it felt sort of anime.
Yeah.
In its presentation. And I say sort of because, it's a mix of an Americanized anime kind of style, but it felt very much like that. I did like the choices that they made throughout the story. You got reminders of who each of the characters were, as far as with relation to what their operating status is, what their background story is. They were very quick little teases. They told you just enough. Batman revealing things about Superman. Superman revealing things about Batman. Batman telling things about himself to Green Lantern. Green Lantern, reinforcing that he is, in charge of our entire space sector. Reinforcing that it isn't a uniform, that he's it isn't a costume. It's a uniform.
Yeah.
Different things like that. Diana's introduction as being a diplomat coming from her country, from Paradise Island to basically, be... basically say, hey, look, I'm out here trying to meet with the president. Even though my people, the Amazons, are gone, which they didn't really address a lot of, and they didn't need to, there's this sense of I am kind of an ambassador still. And I'm glad they still use that kind of reference with her, because I think her relationship with Steve Trevor and the way that they portrayed the triangle between her and Superman and Steve Trevor, I thought was really great. Superman's backstory being revealed. Shazam's backstory being revealed. Flash, details about him as Barry Allen, what he does off on the side through his relationship with Cyborg's dad. They covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And they did it in a way that it told you just enough. It was great, I thought, and accessible for comic fans, while at the same time just giving a wink and a nod to people who, okay, if you're not up to speed on who these characters are, real quickly, here's who they are. And let's get into the big story. Because you could overdo the origins, you needed to spotlight and focus on one, and Cyborg was the appropriate choice for this one. Because I think he's the one that you really got to sell people on, and I thought this movie does that well.
Here's something that's, when you're talking, it popped in my head about with Shazam.
Uh-huh.
Now, it's funny because I'm more comfortable calling him Shazam than Captain Marvel. Because it wasn't until the later version of Billy, those stories where I was introduced, got a comfortability with him, and just got to know the person. But you're more Captain Marvel type of style. And I think that's kind of interesting. You can see where people are in the timeline. Because back, my first readings of comics, I never read, Billy. I never read the Captain Marvel stuff. It just, I never got into it, never really followed it, or even any of the team books he was on, because I didn't read JSA back in the day. So it's kind of interesting hearing you say Captain Marvel, say Shazam, and then just kind of wonder on the two. But now, do you think they're taking away anything from the character because they are calling him Shazam, because they're not going with the Captain Marvel, because of obviously the whole dealings they have with Marvel, and just no point in using the word Marvel in this DC format, because non-comic book readers would get confused.
Well, Marvel has a Captain Marvel too, so that gets even more confusing.
Right.
So that'd be like Marvel having a Superman and DC having a Superman. It's just that'd be a very weird thing. So I get why they do it. I don't have a problem with the name. The only issue I have, and I don't really want them to give him some strange other name now, like Shazam should be it if it's not going to be Captain Marvel, but it's also the same word that he changes with. So, why can he introduce himself as Shazam and not change? But then that's the one issue I have with the whole thing. And it's nitpicky, but I would love an explanation as to why he can introduce himself as Shazam. And I don't know. I don't remember him doing that because he wasn't in the original graphic novel doing this.
Right.
I don't remember him ever introducing himself that way. It's strange to see him on this one, and that might be, if there's one part of this to pick at and poke at a little bit. Why is he able to go? Because he said he was Shazam in this.
Yeah, he introduced himself as Shazam, and then
shouldn't he have changed?
I kind of gave it a pass on that.
I did too, but
the reason I gave it a pass on that is magic isn't just saying abracadabra.
It's intention.
It's the energy outpour. You have to have the power words, but there is a personal energy you have to put into it. So if he just says, "Hi, I'm Shazam," he's not putting the energy of Shazam into it.
See, and I would love that explanation. See, like, that to me, there's got to be an intention there, is what you're saying. And I like that. That's where the energy would come from. It's from the inside, it's drawn from intention. So that adds power to the word. Just saying, you and I can say Shazam, but if we don't have intention, and believe me, as a kid, I had lots of intention. It just didn't work. Because I loved that show as a kid. But that would, to me, be a perfect explanation for it. It's intention. There needs to be something energy-wise. I just would love to see that explanation. It didn't bother. I loved this movie from the first watch-through, but I caught that right away. That was something that, like, it was a geeky thing that stood out for me. I'm like, whoa, wait, hang on. And I did. It was kind of like, wait a minute, what are you doing here?
And for me, Billy, just as I said before, him being in it and not having Aquaman threw me. But by the end of the first, my first viewing, I was like, yeah, that was a good story. I watched it a second time, and I really started focusing on Billy and Cyborg and just how their relationship was going and just how those two characters. And I think that, the second read-through, I really got to see that kid in this massively powerful body. And I really enjoyed those type of moments where you get, you see that, yeah, I know that's a little kid in there. I know that. I can see by the way he's talking. He's like, hey, how y'all doing? He didn't have that superhero presence to him. And it's kind of neat to see that in the animation, neat to see that in the voice fluctuations of the voice actor. So it's an adult playing a kid's mindset. And that was, I really appreciated it and enjoyed it. And then especially you get him in Cyborg, who, Cyborg's a high school senior. And he's got all this stuff. He's thrust in the middle of this, and he's the main player. He's one of the main players in stopping the bad guys. So you got all this pressure on this high school kid, all this pressure on this junior high age, or I think I'd say Billy's junior high, maybe even elementary, but I don't think he's that young. But you have all this pressure on these two kids. And I loved seeing those two, by the end, have those bonding moments where you're like, yes, this is why these two are together. This is why Cyborg's keeping Billy's secret about him being a little kid. He's going to, they both have, commonality.
Now, you mentioned the voices earlier. And I think that's something we should talk about in this one. See, for me, and this might be where there's a different experience that you and I had, and there's no right or wrong for that. It's how you end up viewing this thing and what it does for you. I walked in saying to myself, okay, this is going to be the first New 52 version of, the Justice League. This is going to be the first New 52 major story put out there. So when I was watching this, the new voices, I'm a Kevin Conroy junkie. I love Kevin Conroy. But in this case, I wasn't remotely taken aback by there being a different Batman voice. I thought there should be, because this is a younger Batman. It's a different Batman. It's a younger Superman. It's a different Superman. So the choice of these voices being different, and those are really the two characters that are the standouts for me as being choices, would be the Batman and Superman characters, were welcome, because it gave me a sense of, okay, the rules are different. Their behaviors are going to be different than what we've seen on the previous releases from them, because the world surrounding them is different. That's something that I needed right away to be established when you're bringing this to life, is that the world's different because their behaviors are clearly different than what we've seen in any animated release, particularly when you talk about Superman. And he's not the dun-dun-dun Superman that you know and love when you talk about that. He's in there, but the world around him makes him react slightly differently. Now, in some ways, quite a bit differently. Also, his age is a factor in this. This is not a mature adult Superman. This is a younger Superman. Well, granted, he's clearly in his 20s, or that's at least how I'm registering that, maybe a little bit older. There's still a youth to him that I don't remember. John Byrne's Man of Steel, when they relaunched and modernized him back in the 80s. They did carried it into the monthly books and things like that. He was still a more mature Superman. It was just that he had more of a modern vibe in the world surrounding him, but he was still universally accepted by the crowd. In this case, in a world where you're not, where you're distrusted and things like that, and you also are skewed younger, because I feel, you read Man of Steel, don't you feel this guy's skewed younger, especially in Justice League War?
Oh, definitely. It's a much younger version than actually even what's in the comic. It felt like to me, because the comic version, when they had Justice League 1, he seemed a little bit more mature. He had a little bit more of some hard times under him. He's no longer wearing the T-shirt and the jeans. He had the Kryptonian battle armor. So he had those Brainiac stories. He had all these other things that would, the conflict and just the turmoil that he's dealt with when he was much younger, when he was first getting started in it. This Superman didn't seem like he had that type of conflict. And that was when first started, first watching it, I was like, Superman's a bit of a jerk. Well, how do I feel about that? And then as I'm looking at him, I'm looking at the way he's created, I'm like, okay, this is a younger Superman. And it just started, going with that mindset where, he's, just still trying to find his place in the world, still trying to find his place as this massive superhero, massively powerful person. So I immediately... I'd say immediately gave a pass on a little bit of the attitude because hasn't dealt with, the way I watched him as he hadn't dealt with all those major stuff that the other Superman had dealt with. So it's kind of it was something that I noticed, but again, second, third watchings, I enjoyed it and said, okay, this is kind of cool. This is a young version of him still learning the ropes.
Well, it's also, too, in the initial meeting with Batman and Green Lantern, because of the fact that they had a mother box, he was assuming they were in league with whoever these parademons, they didn't identify yet parademons and Darkseid. They were still trying to figure that out. So that was the initial assumption. I liked how easily it was for Batman and him once, like Batman's like, Green Lantern, you've got to stop. We're not going to win with this guy. Batman was feeling him out, which I think Batman was doing just for the purpose of gathering information. I think Batman knew all along he wasn't going to be able to take this guy down. He was just trying to gather as much intel as he could without aggravating the fight to the point that Green Lantern was taking it. It was funny how Green Lantern heavy hitting him, Batman knew, no, this is a mistake. Don't do this, Hal. Yeah. Stop what you're doing at this point because we don't want to anger him. I was trying to gather some information on like what might work in the future. And there was a different process with Batman that I really liked. There was a maturity there with Batman that I really liked.
Oh, yeah.
That seemed to work for me. Very much, the loner. Also not trying to give too much information about himself because he wants to keep the mystery and the mythos alive. Hal coming in with an impression of Batman that was fostered by rumors fits Batman's operating. Stick to the shadows, make people think you're something more than what you are. And all of a sudden, the rumors of what you are will carry the legend and make it into something beyond your capabilities. That was something that I thought was critical in all of this, because Hal came in, and again, a young Hal, came in with an impression of Bruce that was based on what he heard through rumor. I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, God, yeah. This definitely spotlighted the strategery of Batman. And that was something that I enjoyed.
Batman would never use that word.
Yes, he would. But everything you're talking about, that fight between him and Superman, because when he's just, it was basically just not taunting, but it was studying. He needs to see how is he going to react to this. Everything, hitting him with the electricity, with the taser, dropping the smoke, and having Clark just fly right through. I can still see you. Okay, now I know what he can see. He can see this. He can do this. And he started gathering intel, but also just kind of that feel for what we're dealing with. But Hal was completely on another page, and Hal cracked me up a lot of times throughout this because. Again, yes, he is this intergalactic police, part of this intergalactic policekeeping force, but we saw him not be exactly the best team player. Hal has issues sometimes with that. He sometimes has issues with authority figures and just that whole dynamic. And I love seeing that, starting when he's starting, but by the end, he starts trying to get more team dynamic, trying to get more team oriented, and just, he tries to be the leader, tries to rally people, but he's not Batman. He's not Superman. He's not even Wonder Woman. He's got his quirks. So it's neat to see that younger Hal Jordan, who's going to mature by the next, movies, or throughout the next movies. We're going to see more of the Hal we're used to present day, because this Hal has had all these different experiences as a Green Lantern. And again, the movie set me up for wanting to watch more of these movies, and I'm so excited that you told me about that the trailer, well the credits scenes, that I got to go see them now. As soon as we're done recording, I'm going to throw the DVD back in and watch it again just to see the end credits, because I want to see that little teaser for the next movie. But this was, the characters were just, again, I dig, once I got my hand on that they're younger characters, I really digged how they're portrayed at the beginning and then their maturity by the end.
Now, Hal Jordan to me was probably, aside from Superman, because Superman clearly was a departure, Hal Jordan was another, I think in many ways was a bigger departure, because we're dealing with we're used to seeing Hal as the leader of the Green Lantern Corps. And when I say leader, in the various crossover storylines, Hal's one of those guys who's taken leadership just by the fact that he rallies people together. They start following him and deals, and we're seeing this in his current book in Green Lantern, where now he's in charge. A lot of the responsibilities fallen on him. Is it hard for you when you're used to a character having a certain amount of experience and a certain amount of maturity, to all of a sudden have just a great amount of immaturity that Hal had in this? Because he did, definitely in this, and there's no taking away from that. And I know that was a criticism from some people, was taking a look at like Hal and Superman and the reaction between Hal and Batman, because Hal was definitely portrayed in this one as being extremely young and green, for lack of another pun. And
I really, a lot of the puns.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a reality to that. I mean, there is a legitimacy that he does feel like he is very green, and I really don't mean that as a pun. So does that bother you, or?
I actually don't. This was the personality differences. The first watching, I noticed them, but I did like the story in the end, so I didn't really. It wasn't enough to make me say it was a bad movie. But then, as I said, second and third watch throughs, I saw the level of immaturity at the beginning. And I saw him move through the process, and by the end, there was more maturity there. There was, a growth of character within the movie. So for me, I accepted that level of immaturity at the beginning, because by the end, we got more of the Hal we're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if they had kept him at that level of immaturity, I would have been upset. But because he did have growth, because there was some character developments, you get to see, that this is a pretty cool character. And as always, it's not easy being green. So sometimes you just got to go with it.
One of the things that I really liked about this story, and I wish it'd been more, I don't know how they would have done it, broadcast that this is the origin, this is a very young version of these characters. Batman clearly has been operating the longest, and I liked the difference between the interactions between Batman and Barry Allen because of that. Like, Batman's awareness of who Barry Allen was, the operation of the Flash, what he's doing. Batman would be studying these people. He's aware of Superman and distrusts the alien. He's aware that Superman is an alien and distrusts him. The funny part was he did not have the same reaction to, even though he clearly had a rubbing the wrong way with Hal Jordan, he knew that Hal was human. Superman he refers to as the Kryptonian. He knows that this guy is not human, and that's something where immediately Superman's suspect, is he involved with this on some level? Because Batman hasn't had the interactions with him before. The feeling out process there, and the finally getting to the point where Batman realized that, wait, Superman is not a part of this, and we need to talk to this guy, even to that funny moment where, at the end, wait, we're done fighting? With Hal, like, where he's just like, wait, these two guys have just all of a sudden connected and they're chatting and we're done fighting and he doesn't know what to do. I liked those moments. I'm a Hal Jordan fan, so obviously I want to see Hal shine with his maturity. I didn't have a problem like you where we saw a progression of him. I liked that at the end he wasn't all of a sudden super mature.
Right.
I liked that there was a relationship with Batman and Hal that was developing. That's something that would need to develop over time. And I would like to see more in these movies, as they continue on, like in the second one, a gradual evolution of Hal into the guy that you would see in other animated features, even though they're technically from the previous universe. For, I think, the casual viewer that you're mentioning, okay, we're seeing this guy grow to that point where he's the Hal Jordan that we know and love. So that's something I would like to see continue to develop in these. But I had no problem with the way that it worked out. And we definitely got to see his heroism when his arm was broken.
Oh, yeah.
And he's casting up and saying, you know what, I'm going to keep fighting anyway. And that's something that the growing team dynamic in this group, how it wasn't quite there, especially when you're dealing with a 10-year-old, was something that I really thought was great. Because sometimes you got to wonder, like, how do these people who've never teamed up before and don't have that background all of a sudden become a well-polished machine? They didn't in this. It took time. It was something that needed to be developed. And your more mature people like Batman had to drop their sense of mystery to say, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than you. That part where Bruce drops off his cape and cowl, and Hal's even like, why are you telling me all this? And Batman's laying it out for him and saying, look, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than you. And I know that's going to be hard for you to deal with, but I need to do... Basically, Batman was realizing, I need to shock this guy into dropping his ego. I need to drop my own ego to do that, which is hard for me to do, and say, this is bigger than the both of us. You need to pull together. Here's the plan. Let's rally the troops. You need to do this part. I'm going to go get our guy. And that moment where Bruce, basically suits up to be taken away by the parademons to sneak in there to get Superman, I thought was just one of the coolest moments of the whole thing. I loved it in the comic. I loved it even more coming to life here, because there was this sense of, I'm going to get this guy because I am not as effective as him against a cosmic power like this. But my skill set, my ability to use stealth, is what's going to be able to get him out of there, so then he can do the heavy hitting that I can't bring to the table. That's the strategy that Batman brings. That's what Batman brings to the table. It's one of the reasons why Grant Morrison, I thought, did such a great job with using him on that end. I like that this isn't the overly brooding Batman. I love that guy. That was great. Stories that were well done. But we've done that before. We need an evolution of Batman, a different Batman. We're getting that now. It's still the same guy who's gone through the same experiences, but this world's a little different. Batman operates a little differently. His relationship with the Justice League's a little different now. I quite like that. It's a Batman who talks a little bit more. Yeah. A lot less grunting. And I like that.
He not only talks more, but by the end there, he was cracking jokes.
Yes.
Because he had that whole bit with the Green Lantern. Where, oh, you saw? Yeah, Cyborg emailed me the video. And I was just laughing because there's just a little bit of funny banter between the two of them, and it fit. It perfectly fit in because of their shared experience. And that was something that I really was impressed with because, as I said before, the Cyborg-Billy relationship, that was really cool, seeing why they trust. But now we have this Green Lantern and Batman friendship. We have this camaraderie that by the second, movies, there should be even a little bit more. There will be a little bit difference. And you can see, just like as you said, that Bruce had to shock Hal into, getting his mind focused on the task at hand, getting focused on everything. I also cheered when he casted up his arm. But the thing that I loved especially about that is you see the ring go from his one hand to the other hand, go from his broken hand to his non-broken hand. Just so he can keep his one hand immobilized, and he's using the ring on his opposite hand. I thought that was a cool sequence within that same casting up, knuckling up, getting ready to fight. It was a little attention to detail when I saw it. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad they did that.
Wonder Woman and her sense of discovery with our world. I liked that she literally felt like a fish out of water. And that when she was getting out of the limo and there was a protest, she didn't realize that the protest was about her. She was wondering what they were protesting. And the whole bit where she threw the lasso around the guy, and the guy says he likes to dress up like Wonder Woman because he feels powerful. The compassion that she held with that, where she, just chuckled and goes, it makes me feel powerful too. Embrace your truth, my friend. That to me is Wonder Woman. There's a certain amount of strength to her that you have to see at all times. There's a little bit of the naive that you see with her because of the fact that she's not a part of our culture. She's from outside of it. And I like that. But yet there's also a wisdom that comes from laughing at the things that we make big deals in our current society right now. There's things that are going on that people are making a big deal on that it's like, wow, we've got huge financial issues in our country that seem to be continually improving at a very slow pace. But, those are big issues. There's a world condition that's going on that's a big issue right now that we should really be worried about. But there's certain little things that are becoming big issues in our country. And there's something, I think, to Wonder Woman basically making this sweeping statements that she does where she laughs at things like, this guy, that we all should do that. Just kind of go, okay, why are we making a big deal out of this? This doesn't really affect me.
Right.
I think there's something cool about that. There's a message there that I think is really interesting. Don't sweat the small stuff,
Exactly.
And she just moved along and, kind of really gets serious when there's a major problem going on. When there's that attack going on, she's with the little girl with the ice cream and that whole bit. They were charming, fun moments. And you need to see those with Diana. You need to see that softer side. Because then when everything breaks loose and you see her get serious and start going, this is what I was made for. Her handling of the situation with the president and the heir and everything like that, I thought was really terrific.
Yeah.
What did you think about her first interactions with Superman?
See, I absolutely, she's the character from point one, from the initial, she's one of the characters right from the very beginning. I loved what they were doing with her. There wasn't any, it was, to me, it felt just a perfect fit and a perfect feel, especially, just that innocence where she doesn't understand it. The protester moment, I love where she's sitting there by, they will feel my sting, whoever you are protesting. Oh, me? What? She has that, I'm going to fight and defend you. Wait, you're protesting me. What's going on here? And just that whole dynamic, and especially the fact that she had an audience with the President of the United States, but wasn't going to wait around for him. If he doesn't have any time for me, I'll leave. And that's when she goes out and she meets the little girl with the ice cream because she blew off the President of the United States. I loved just seeing that, especially Steve reminding her, hey, you're a diplomat here. You can't do that kind of stuff. And just, Steve trying to work his magic and his mojo. And I thought that was you talk about the love triangle between the three of them. Well, in reality, there is no love triangle. There is the budding relationship between Superman and Wonder Woman and Steve's infatuation with Wonder Woman. She does not look at Steve in any way, shape, or form as anything other than a nice person and a friend. And I loved how you got to see that very solid in the movie, whereas in the comic there was always a question, how much did she care? In the movie they lay it out pretty solid because he asks her out on a date and she doesn't realize I'm being asked out on a date. When he says, I'll take you to where the best place, I know where the best place to get ice cream is. And she's like, well, I could compel you to tell me. He's like, or I could just take you there. And she doesn't see it as a date because of her culture. But she sees, this in Superman, this powerful entity, this powerful, powerful person that, again, fits in with her warrior culture, fits in with that warrior class. She's like, this is somebody I could be with. All right, let's get to know this guy. And I love just seeing that dynamic right from the very beginning.
Yeah. There's almost a mutual respect on the battlefield. Maybe connecting in some ways with her heritage through him, which was something that I thought was really, really interesting. And the relationship makes sense. I mean, it's working in the comics. And I'm a Superman and Lois junkie.
But this fits.
This fits right now. I could see it. They're an evolution of the characters where maybe it leads to Superman. There's that part of me that's still rooting for Superman and Lois. But for right now, with where these characters are at, this makes sense.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, you talk about just that whole battle with the parademons attacking Air Force One. And Superman and Wonder Woman showing up and fighting and doing what they had to do. I thought that was a really, really neat moment because you had this initial battle where it's Superman, Batman, and Green Lantern fighting the parademons.
Yep.
Superman hears with the super hearing that the Capitol is under siege, and he goes there immediately. Bruce and Hal had no idea why their big gun just left. Like, okay, this is not a good situation. We just lost our big gun. And I loved seeing that kind of stuff where, Superman just flies off and had to rescue the president, had to deal with that. And then right in within the middle of those combat moments, you get that nice tender, lovey-dovey moment between Wonder Woman and Superman. But it didn't take away from any of the action going on around them. Uh-huh. It was one of those things where those two clicked right at that point in time. And I'm like, that's neat. I like how they're bringing in their relationship, the New 52 relationship between the two of them, bringing that right into the story right from the beginning, not waiting to pull it in.
I'm glad you mentioned that moment, too, where Superman heard that the thing was going on, that there was trouble, and he left. Because that gave me a sense of, why is Superman have trouble with team dynamics? Because Superman never has really had time to stop and be a part of a group,
right.
Or to get to know anyone on that level. So that would be something very foreign to him. He's more focused on the larger world condition, things that are going on, trying to be everywhere he possibly can so he doesn't miss an opportunity to save someone else. And that's something that I think was a pivotal key to this one. Yes, we're dealing with a younger Superman, but those are core values of the guy that I think are really important. And that was something that really grew. The sequence with Darkseid where Batman went to rescue Superman, the fact that Batman knew when to throw out Clark and when not to throw out Clark, and he did it multiple times throughout the movie, very judicious with it, but showing that, okay, this isn't about me using what I know about you to hold it over your head, even though clearly Batman gathered the intel in case it would be useful to him at some point. But he threw that information out there in those purposes to connect with the man, the humanity of Superman. That's something that I think is really important to bring out in the New 52, the Clark Kent side. And I think Batman acknowledging that side in those moments is something we need as fans. One little addendum I'd put on here, and this is coming from a standpoint of somebody from the start to finish, I really enjoyed this movie. I did not have any issue in the first watch of this. I really enjoyed it. Other than the Shazam thing, I don't want to call it an issue because it really, like you, I just let it go. So I really enjoyed this from start to finish without any problems, other than catching the things that fans will. I wished at the beginning there had been a narrative piece or something very fast acknowledging this was a new world. Because we saw the Flashpoint paradox.
Right.
But for a new viewer maybe who has seen this for the first time and didn't see Flashpoint paradox, maybe they saw Justice League, just to let people know that, hey, maybe this is your second DC animated movie, but because this happened, this is a brand new world, and what you're going to witness now is the origin of the Justice League or something like that. Just a quick little acknowledgement that's something new. I think that was important for a new viewer because I don't remember there being anywhere really acknowledging that this is a new world. And I think that's critical for that to be an acknowledgement. Other than, it didn't take it away from the film for me because I knew that going in. But I think for somebody who isn't versed, to just recognize that Hal Jordan's acting this way because this really is a very early appearance of him, which is going to be very different than the Hal you would see in the comic books right now. I would say for a Green Lantern reader who maybe saw this video and doesn't read Justice League, to know that that's why Hal's behaving the way he is, I think is pretty important.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. That there should have been some type of way to just let people know this is really early in the timeline. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing I was thinking, it could be they could have done it in the news broadcast. Mm-hmm. That opening news broadcast where they show the parademon snatching the person from the ATM. That could have been a moment, just even say, it's been 1 year since these so-called superheroes have made the scene, and here we see this, or something as quick and simple as that. Just a little bit line within the news broadcast would have actually probably helped non-comic book fans, non-people who know what's going on with the overall story.
But overall, I mean, I still consider that to be a minor criticism.
Oh, big time. Big time.
It's just something where I'm like, maybe that would be helpful. And I don't know that it would. I haven't had a lot of conversations with people who aren't really comic fans who've seen this one. I would love to see... That would be something, but maybe I'll let friends borrow it or something like that and just say, hey, man, tell me what you think of this, just to get some kind of feedback on that. Because I wonder if that's even an issue or if that's just me. Maybe it's my issue. Because I quite enjoyed it. I guess I want people to be able to see this for what it is meant to be. Because I think it did what it's supposed to do really, really well.
Oh, God, yeah. This was definitely entertaining, and it was really neat intro into this world's Justice League and just everything that's going to start happening afterwards. Well, hopefully they're going to keep building on this, and they'll start having a new 52 movie library, and they can tell some cool stories. They can do some original stuff. They can do recaps of, replays of current stories that have been told in the comics. However they want to go with this, I think that we have a solid foundation to build on. And again, there was some neat, some neat personal dynamics that I'm looking forward to further developments and further what happens within the characters, and not just the Superman Wonder Woman love story. I want to see the friendship angles between Green Lantern Flash or Green Lantern and Batman, and then especially Cyborg and Billy, seeing how those guys all get along. There should be plus additional characters. If we're getting Aquaman in the next movie, cool. Maybe we get another person added into the list, another member of the Justice League, or some other type of heroes mentioned or cross-referenced somehow.
Were you? I don't know if it was just me. I was more mad at Vic's dad in this one than I was in the original graphic novel.
Yeah.
And that's not taking anything away from the original graphic novel. I thought this one really captured the sense of, especially with Billy being in the seat, it was more, I guess I was drawn to the fact that Dad's not there. This kid is who snuck in. And I don't remember Dad blatantly saying he would never go to one of the games. And I don't know that it wasn't in the original comic, and I really should have looked back to check. I don't know that it's necessarily that it wasn't in the original comic as much as I thought just having that spoken.
Yeah.
And him looking at him and going, no. Just the power in that moment of understanding that, for Vic, this is something that's important, and the dad not recognizing that this is important to my son. I should be there because it's important to my son. It's not about how I view things. It's my son views it this way. For my son, this is important. I should be there because it's of value to him. It's not about what's of value to me. It's okay to have those different values. He doesn't really appreciate his son until it looks like he's going to die. There's something to that, I think, that's very, very real to the real world and relationships that people have nowadays. We're such a, and I think it's more prevalent now. We're such a fast-moving society, and there's so much going on. We're so interconnected with so many other things. There's not a lot of moments to sit down and breathe and think things through, and there's a real danger to that. The relationship between Vic and the dad, I think, is really critical for all of us. Forget just father and son relationships, just relationships with people in general. Just take a moment, take a breath, and kind of go, hey, let me think through what maybe other people are going through. And I think there's a lot of value to that particular sequence because of that. There was multiple times I wanted to reach into my TV screen and smack the dad upside the head and go to his game. I want to go to his game.
And I tell you, it's when I was reading through the comic and everything, I didn't get this feeling of a bad father. I got a feeling of a father who was focused on work, one of those type of parents who will just concentrate on the job and just some stuff goes to the sideways. But in the movie, I got the feeling like this guy's a jerk. He's flat out just and I was just like, what? And I was getting angry at the dad, and I was, and again, that's part of my drawing connection to the strength of Vic. That this is this high school senior dealing with all the regular pressures of high school, regular pressures of being the superstar athlete, and everything that he's got to go on. On top of that, he's got a father who is, an absentee dad, for lack of terms, even though they're right in the same household. The dad's not there emotionally, physically, mentally, any of that stuff. Vic's on his own. And to have everything that happens, and I even loved how Vic throughout the line was, the only time you want to spend time with me is when I become one of your experiments. So there's still going to be pain, resentment going on between the two of them. Things aren't completely patched up and good to go now. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that story plays out. Again, with Billy, with helping Cyborg, kind of realizing stuff. I'm assuming, Cyborg's going to learn more about Billy's past, learn about how he's a foster kid and foster homes, etc. And that'll kind of even further bond the two of them together. And we could even get some closure between Vic and his dad, maybe even, a friendship growing out of all this. But I loved seeing just that animosity. I love seeing just that nastiness. But then it comes to that point in time where he's about to die. Got to do something. It's a desperate father trying to scramble and save his son's life, which that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it. The relationship you're mentioning of Vic and Billy, I think, is something that was a real strength of this, especially with Vic keeping Billy's secrets. Just kind of going, oh my gosh, this is that kid, and there was something in that. in realizing Vic said he was going to keep the secret, Billy knowing that Vic was going to keep the secret. There's a trust that's all of a sudden, because what's the reason to reveal it? What is Vic doing that's positive by revealing it? Nothing at all. By keeping the secret and respecting this kid who's respecting him and trying to help him through it, there's a relationship being built there. It shows a sense of honor. You know, if Billy's life was in danger because of the fact that of his age or something like that, there was something going on where, like, if Vic revealed it, it would be beneficial to Billy in the long run. I would be totally all for him spilling the guts. But right now, all it's going to do is alienate Billy. And, Billy's not going to stop operating or stop doing anything because Vic reveals it. Vic not revealing it, I think, has opened up a doorway for him to be a mentor of sorts to Billy. Yeah. And I really liked that. There was something, and I was wishing at the end of this that, like, why isn't this an animated series? I want to see more, like, immediately. You know, this is something where, like, I want this to be like a 13-episode AMC animated series or something where we get to see the continued development of the relationship that you're talking about there. That's something that I want to see more of. I want to see more of Superman and Diana, that relationship fleshing out. Batman operating in this group, and trying to learn how to adapt, to the fact that these are superhuman circumstances. And he's a guy who doesn't have the powers. He doesn't have flight. It's the Hal Jordan exchange with him where he's sitting there, going through all the things that, trying to figure out what powers Batman has. And right at the end, he goes, "You mean you're just a normal guy?" And he'd already taken the ring because Hal wasn't concentrated. That was priceless. Because he's Batman. That's what he does.
I absolutely love that scene. There's just that whole sequence going to someone didn't take their true blood. You're like, not a vampire. Super strength? No. Can you fly? In a plane. And it was just little bits like that. And just that whole bit. And he's sitting there looking at it and go, no buttons. It must work on willpower. And he's analyzing everything like, hey, how'd you do that? You broke concentration. I howled throughout that sequence. I absolutely loved it. Again, great banter between the two of them. And even the fact that when the costume drops off, he's wearing his Hal Jordan, flight suit, so now Bruce knows who Hal is.
There was a fun factor. And that was the great part, too. Again, showing the observation skills. He caught that right away. That's how he knew he was Hal Jordan. That's something that throughout this, there's nothing wrong with there being a certain fun factor. The banter between the two of them, the exchange, it didn't take anything away from the fact that these guys wound up in the end stepping up and all being heroes and saving the world. Every so often, it's okay to have a little bit of fun with these books and with these characters and to bring elements of that into there. And I want to see these characters continue to mature to be the characters that we know them to be. And that sense of they're at this stage in their life is something that's fresh to me. Because I don't remember reading them as a group in this kind of stage. In the previous offerings, the previous origin of the Justice League when they first got together and various retellings of that origin, they were always more mature, seasoned heroes who were aware of each other through teaming up. Mm-hmm. The only two that really seemed to know each other particularly well were Barry and Hal. It was clear that the two of them had a relationship prior to this, which I liked. I quite liked there was a couple of guys on the team that had a history. Yeah. That was awesome. But other than those two, it was really this sense of that these guys are just really green. They don't, have this sense of heroes in the world, how to interact with other heroes, how to interact with the world in their costumes. Because Batman's used to letting people fear him. That worked for him.
It's part of the persona. It's part of his power that he has that fear and intimidation. I loved seeing just, again, there was that cool bright green light, and then Batman said, "Turn off the light. They'll see us." Who? Gotham PD shows up. I was like, okay, there you go. Yeah, the police force, modern society doesn't completely trust them, and they shouldn't. It's that if we're dealing with a modern world, we have to have that level of distrust. Unfortunately, it's the way we are. It's when Hal caught that one, the female the parademon through, and catches her, makes a little elevator, lands. She goes, "Okay, what's in it for you?" She immediately calls him on it, and he's like, "Hey, you're welcome." And he just leaves. But she's sitting there, and she has that normal human reaction. Someone's not going to help me just to help me. There's got to be something. There's got to be something in it for them.
Does it bother you in the comics now? Because historically with DC, before the New 52. Heroes as a concept have been universally accepted. Now we've got a world post the New 52 where, to this day, even Batman still, people are trying to cuff him and put him in prison and that type of thing. I mean, that's the kind of operations that we have here. Does that bother you?
No, I absolutely love it, because this, in the modern society, we would have these reactions. Mm-hmm. If there was somebody who could fly, if Superman existed present day, the government would be very nervous about him, and there would be divisions of Department of Homeland Defense who would just sit there and focus on the heroes. They would develop a whole separate thing like they have in the comic book. They have the Argus and all the various other initiatives going on, but that stuff would happen just because you can't trust someone with that much power. You got to make sure. Why are they're saying they're doing this to be good guys. They're saying this to help people. Are they really? Is there something else in an end game? Especially add to the fact that we got a person from another planet. Okay, why is he here? Is he the lead in for the invasion? Is he here to soften us up? What's going on here? What's his backstory? What is he not telling us? That the professional skepticism, just that level of mistrust that we naturally have, it's being reflected in the comic books, and I like seeing that. And I like seeing that there are some people who are going to openly trust him, say, no, these are good guys, we can trust them. And then there's going to be the other say, I don't know. Okay, we'll see what happens. And it's, you can't just be universally loved or universally hated. You have to have both sides of the coin to have it be realistic.
Yeah, that's something I like. It's going to be interesting. You mentioned something earlier in passing, and you meant it this way. But when you talked about these movies, I don't want, because they're going to making New 52 movies, because I know Batman and Son's supposed to be the New 52 version of Batman. It's going to be the retelling of the story that took place before the New 52 started, but obviously with a New 52 spin on it. I'm cool with that, because Damian's story folded nicely into the New 52, so I want to see that. It's going to be the same Batman from this. With them telling these stories that are clearly adaptations of New 52 material, I hope we still get some original ones, because you mentioned original ones before. I've liked the original ones as well, so I think a nice balance of those. I almost wish they would come up with a way of branding some of them as being DC Classic or something like that, where they could still tell I'm hoping they still, from time to time, will tell classic stories from the past, because I think that's also a strength with these offerings, with the animation, that they can kind of grab the best of the best stories, whether they're New 52, whether they're from the past or original offerings, and just give us a wide variety, because I just think every one of them, when they come out, I'm really digging out of the starting gate. I'm glad to see them delve into the New 52 and show what this world's like. I thought there were some things that stood out for me a little bit more that are distinguishing differences between the origin of this Justice League and the classic, and how much the world around them has affected what that relationship is like. And I think that's really a key there. This was really a great offering.
Oh God, yeah. As I said, I enjoyed it on my first watching, but it wasn't until second and third that I really wow, okay, yeah, I like that. And I really got more into depth thinking second and third movie down the line. I'm now thinking third movie down the line. I'm now thinking
which is funny that you never in any of those watchings saw the part of it that shows you that they're more
right.
And they don't. It's not one of those things where they say coming soon, Justice League Atlantis or anything like that. It isn't like that. It's really a quick teaser, but it's enough to let you know that okay, they got to be doing that story at some point. So
yeah, and as soon as the credits started rolling, I think the first time I watched it, I paused it on the names. Saying, okay, who's doing Superman? I looked at the names and then I just hit stop, and I just then later when I watched it, as soon as the movie was ended, I hit stop, and I never went through all of the credits. You got to let me know these things. You got to say, hey Jim, watch the credits. Give me that heads up.
Wait, if you're a comic fan right now and you go to any comic book movies, I will sit through the credits of every comic book movie now, even when there's not one of them, and there's probably chances are high there aren't going to be, just in case, because that's become common practice to throw stuff like that in there.
And to be honest, when I'm in the movie theater, I do that. I'm one of the last guys to leave a theater. But because this was released to home, I didn't think they would do that.
Fast forward button.
Well, that would have been easier. That would have been a smart thing to do. But, just for some reason, I never thought that they would do something like that on a direct release to home. Not anything that was ever in the theaters.
It was cool. It's really a cool offering, and I can't wait to see more. I just Batman and Son. It was a great story, so I'm looking forward to that being the next one. Oh yeah! And did you get a chance? You probably didn't have a chance yet to watch any of the extras that were associated with this.
No, I haven't had a chance.
They have some wonderful, especially there's a Jim Lee kind of retrospective kind of thing on there. But then there's taking the pencil to the page, with this, how they converted it to film. There's some really cool extras that for people who are into documentary style material, it was really great. But taking a look at the Jim Lee retrospective of his kind of history in comics, it was very well done as an extra feature for this. So I highly recommend it if you're one of those that watches the features and sometimes ignores the extras. There's some really amazing extras on this one that I think are just well worth watching. That have a lot of depth to them. The Jim Lee thing was around a half an hour long. It was pretty comprehensive. It was very nicely done.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
I want to do a quick little just spoiler reminder at the start of this particular segment. We're going to be talking about Arrow Season 2 up to Episode 13, which is Heir to the Demon. There were some big events and happenings, and we don't want to ruin the show for you if you're not current with it. So just wanted to let everyone know that's where we're at. That being said, oh my God, is this show awesome.
Wow. You know what? I'll tell you, this is, as excited as I was during first season, I am just even more so now because they're really taking this up a notch. And I always liked the fact that the vigilante Arrow and just how he was kind of keeping away from the superhero stuff, but it was still there. Now we're shifting pure superhero mode. We're going from vigilante to hero, introducing some really cool characters, having some really neat interactions like, yes, Arrow, Arrow.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is really great about this show is the growth over time. I would once again say if you haven't watched this show, let's say the first season you were like, it's just not getting enough of what I like, and you dropped it for some reason, I can totally respect that. I cannot recommend enough that Season 2 is drastically different, but if there's one program that I would say it makes sense to, just make your way through Season 1, then delve into Season 2, this is one where you really need that experience. Because to me, I feel like the strength of Season 2 is all of the history that has been developed in Season 1 has built to where we're at right now. It feels like long-form storytelling. This is what I love. It feels like it's the best of serialized storytelling. It's what we like as comic fans. It's the best of what's going on in great television right now, in the sense that the programs that are doing really well are long-form programs. These programs that have, over time, developed into big, huge arcs that have a point to them. This show has done that. My gosh, Season 2, it's like had all the right beats. Let's talk about Roy. We got to go to Roy first, because that was the previous episode. There was a lot of Roy happenings. And then we'll jump back to what's going on with Black Canary and Laurel and that whole family. But Roy has been injected with the Miracle. And because of that, he's dealing with a tremendous power set that is out of his control. It's leading to anger and viciousness that we see with Deathstroke back on the island. This is one of the things with this Ollie. Ollie, throughout his life, has had to deal with mistakes that he's made. This is something that's classic Green Arrow. There's that part of Ollie, the humanity to Ollie, that I've always connected with as a reader. This is what separates him from being Batman. It's not things that have been forced on him that make Ollie so easily to attach to. It's the fact that this guy is human. He makes mistakes along the way. Sometimes he makes boneheaded mistakes, but he then has this sense of guilt, this sense of responsibility, and tries to make things right. Sometimes the things are directly his fault, like what happened with Laurel's sister. Other things are just choices that he made along the way because he was there, because there was an involvement, because he maybe could have handled the situation differently, that he feels a guilt factor to the situation. And that's something that I like about him. For all this power, all this skill that he's got, sometimes he just, needs to reevaluate. His original role the first season where he was a killer, that was something that he had to rethink in the second season, and I like that shift. That he's not this guy anymore that's going out and killing people all the time. The loss of his friend has made him see that if I'm going to continue operating, I need to become something more. I need to be a symbol of something more. I need to bring something better to the city than what I did before. It's not about the revenge anymore. It's about something else. Far more powerful if you saw him through all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And if that was something you didn't like the first season and you're listening to this, pick up the show because it makes sense why he evolves to what he is in season 2. That evolution is something where, like, I find him so much more connectable now than I even did the first season, and I loved the first season. Second season has just kicked it up to 13 because I thought season 1 was already up to 11. So it's such a great show because of that.
Oh, God, yeah. And when you talk about Roy, when they first introduced him, way back when he was the street rat, he was just the scam, the con artist who, started hanging out and then eventually dating Thea. And I thought that was a really neat introduction to the guy. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is kind of cool that here's how, and I'm thinking in my head, he's going to get hooked on something. Every time they introduce a drug, I always think, okay, Roy is going to get hooked on it and Ollie's going to help him get off it. And I'm thinking that classic story of how Speedy was a junkie, and just every single time, they introduce some type of drug, I always think, okay, Roy's going to get injected with this. So when Miracle came out, I actually didn't think Roy was initially going to get injected by it because I was thinking, okay, they're not going to make him superhuman strong. So when he gets injected, I was like, oh, cool. That's going to be how, you immediately start thinking, how are they going to play this out? How are is this going to handle, where's this going to go? And I loved how he gets that, juiced up. He has those anger issues. He has those things where Ollie's trying to reach Roy, trying to give him a reason to hold back. And it was funny seeing some of those initial training sequences where he's having him just slap the water, which is what Ollie had to do back on the island. But for Roy, it wasn't just about increasing arm strength. It was about giving him that discipline, giving him that control over his anger. And just, it's kind of a meditation type thing, but that still didn't work. And he keeps trying new and different things. And I love just seeing that never quit. I gotta keep working. I can't fail him like I failed Slade. I can't fail him like I failed Shadow. And these things that are keeping the guilt, but it's not even guilt. It's just I've got to do the right thing because I didn't at this one point in time in my life. I love that.
The eventual leading to this being Team Arrow, with Roy being brought into the team right now. I loved that there was an uneasiness with the other two members of his team, where they had to sit there and kind of go, wait, you're doing what now? We're revealing our secret to him now? It's something where not only has he compromised himself, but he compromised them. That was something, I liked how they trusted him with it, and they went along with it, but there was an uneasiness about it too. It felt real. It added more, instead of them just going, hey, Roy, high five, all that kind of stuff. It was throughout the episode, there was this sense of, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And really having to feel that process out as far as whether or not this is okay was something that, because you're bringing a new player to a close-knit group of 3. And when you're going to do that, now all of a sudden, Black Canary knows about them. Roy knows about them. It becomes something that would make this group a little bit uneasy, and I like that.
Yeah. We saw that with when Felicity brought Barry in to help out Ollie. He had that same mistrust saying, hey, what's going on here? And it's a natural, normal human reaction. So when you're dealing with all these supernatural stuff, having a natural reaction is something huge.
Totally agree. And I think that is the part of this that I'm really enjoying, is when they take things like that and they add in just a couple of lines or a facial reaction or something like that. This is a brilliant cast. There really isn't anybody on this that's a weak link. Everybody who's a part of this is what makes this show work for me. It's a great example of how to make great television. And how to make a great superhero show it's the same thing we say about our comics. What makes the comics work the best? It's when the hero and the supporting cast, including the villains, are really well developed to the point where we care about all of them on some level. This happens here. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about this show is, I want to see relationships with Roy and Felicity. I mean, not with Roy and Felicity, I'm sorry, with Ollie and Felicity. She's somebody I'm like, wait, I should be wanting to see him with Laurel or her sister. Instead, I want to see him with Felicity. And that's something that's really great in this, is that these are people that I'm starting to really care about in a certain extent. Deathstroke is somebody I'm fascinated by, because we still don't completely know yet what led them to the place that they're at now.
Yeah.
We know that Ollie hit him in the eye. We've known that since really the beginning of the show, because there was that mask on the island that had the arrow through it. So there was that hinting all along that was eventually going to be where it's led. We're now heavily 13 episodes into the second season, and we still haven't seen how that happened. I think that's great.
Well, the fact that they keep building on what happened on the island, and they keep getting these flashbacks to that island sequence and everything, it's still cracking me up, because I remember thinking in the first season, well, they're not going to have too much time on the island, or thinking, I never thought it would keep going the way it's been going. And just how much actually happened to him while he was there was something that I was like, dang, that is, as every story unfolds, I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's neat. And I look forward to learning more about it, especially with the Deathstroke stuff. One, that's one of my favorite villain characters. Two, the actor portraying him is an outstanding actor who I absolutely loved him when he was in Spartacus, when he played Crixus. This is just this very powerful, dynamic character for me, playing this very powerful, dynamic villain, and just seeing the fact that there is a level of intelligence. There is a level of, I won't say it. There is a level of strategy that, that Deathstroke does have, and he's just playing doing the master manipulator, puppet master, just putting everything, all the pieces in place to absolutely destroy Oliver Queen. Not just physically beat him down and put an arrow in his eye. He wants to break his heart. He wants to break his soul. And I love just seeing, just as this is slowly playing out, just how truly nasty Deathstroke is in this universe. And I'm looking forward to round 2 fight between the two of them.
Yeah, that's something that I really want to see, because there's a sense of him being something more. When you think along the lines, we've got Brother Blood, who's out there running for mayor. And with him running, and now Queen running, and the whole thing about Thea's parentage and all that being on the table, the drama that's being developed here, there is nothing that, there's multi-layered storytelling going on here, with Ollie's family being so well fleshed out. His mother, he's got real issues with her right now.
Yeah.
But yet he has to back her running for mayor against somebody who he considers as a friend, because he doesn't see Brother Blood as being the bad guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. This is something that's been completely hidden from him. So now, basically, his mother has got a big target painted on her by the bad guys, and he doesn't realize that that's what's coming. That's the huge thing. We as a viewer know things that Ollie does not, and the anticipation of, is Ollie going to figure out enough time to do something to stop it? I don't know.
Let me ask you a question. Felicity figures out the lineage, which I loved how when Felicity's able to do this type of stuff, and you show that she is really intelligent and she's a strong character, even though sometimes she kind of backs off a little timid mouse-ish, but there's still strength of character in her, and she knows what the right thing to do is, and she'll stick to the right thing to do. She finds out the secret of her lineage, and then lets Ollie know. If you were in her boots, would you have done it?
Considering everything that's going on with them and knowing how damaging secrets have been in their world, yes. It would be hard to do, but here's the problem. With the fact that secrets have seemed from all of them, especially from the first season to present day, to come out eventually anyway, and how damaging they are, you don't want to be the one that kept the secret and have somebody find out later that you knew and you never told. In her case, she did the right thing. The mother was trying to blackmail her, and she had to make a decision. What do I do? Do I give the mother power over me? Or do I go to Ollie, lay it on the table, and say, look, I recognize this might be the end of our friendship, relationship, whatever, but this is what's what. I have to give you the truth, the honesty, the respect. It takes the power away from the mother. It shows the respect she has for Ollie, and also shows her strength of character. That's a tough situation, because I say that as an adopted person. Like if somebody knew my lineage and stuff like that, that's a really hard thing to face. But I don't know how you keep a secret like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's kind of like, what do I value more? The honesty that we have? Because once you start telling one lie, you're doomed to keep telling more.
Yeah.
Because now she has to not only lie about the fact that she knows, but now she would have to lie about the fact that the mother was blackmailing her. Then what does that turn into? You know what I mean? Once you head down that path, it leads to lie after lie after lie after lie. It's not just one. There's already 2 lies on the table in that episode. That was just going to compound over time. She did the right thing. I mean, you have to put a stop to it. She's a victim of circumstance, by the fact that she found that out. She's not the one that caused all that, but she did the right thing. I question the timing.
Yeah, see, that's the only issue I have. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I say I have an issue with that, but I don't, because it fit in the story really nicely.
Right.
That, that's the only time he had to notice something was wrong with her. Something's not up. There's something not kosher here. What's the deal? And then she tells him. Now, ideal situation, I wouldn't tell him that secret about 5 minutes before he has to go on and sing praises of his mother. Bad timing, right decision.
She should have told him right away.
Well, I would have said, wait.
No.
Until after Ali did his thing.
She should have never gone to the mom first. She should have gone to Ali first. That was the big mistake, was not going to Ali first. That's where I look at it as, because then it wouldn't have been right before Ali was giving the speech. Ali would have known right away. What she should have done, and really in those situations, she should have said, listen, this is what I think's on the table. Use this information however you will. As the friend, she should have left it Ali's option on how to handle his mother. She should not have taken it upon herself to do that. That was the mistake she made.
Right.
If it really is somebody you respect and it's their family, you just say, look, I might be out of line here, but out of respect as a friend, I got to come clean with you. And here's what I think's going on. Use that information however you will. And if you're mad at me about it, I understand, but this is about honesty and friendship, and you got to trust that, okay? And she should have told him that and let him decide how to handle the mom.
Yes, and I'm also going to say no. I don't see her going. I understood why she went to the mom first, try to get the mom to do the right thing, but it's... I understand her intention, and part of me wonders if she had gone to Ali before confronting the mom, that could have caused a rip between her and Ali, because Ali's like, hey, what's going on? Why he could have gone on a defensive mode. Whereas once she has complete confirmation, once she knows what the mom's going to do and not do with the information, then telling Ali, see, it's a tough call. I definitely think she should have told Ali. It's just when she tells Ali is I don't know.
Okay, let me put it to you a different way.
Time.
I find out some deep, dark secret about your family, or I think there is one. Instead of telling you, I go to confront your mother about it. Yeah,
I'd be a little pissed.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that was the mistake that she made. You respect that. You might get pissed at me, but I go to you first.
Yeah, because okay, I'm seeing your point here. And again, we're both saying the right thing about she did the right thing. It's just when she should have done it.
It's a timing issue for me. She should have gone to Ali first before any conversation happened with the mother. If a conversation happened with the mother, at least Ali knows that it's on the table. That was, in my mind, and she should have even said to him, hey, I was thinking of talking to your mom about this. Gives him the option to say, hey, no, I need to handle that. And, whatever happens at that point. You put the friendship first.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the episode ends with Ali and Sarah, getting friendly with each other. The question is, did Felicity telling all this stuff to Ali, did that put a wedge between them? Because that's the one thing Mom was holding against her, saying, hey, you tell him this, you will always be remembered as the guy who did this, as the person who did this to Ali, who let Ali know about this dark secret. It will put a wedge between you. Did she actually put a wedge between them, or was there already that wedge there that Ali wasn't going to cross the line over with Felicity?
I think with Sarah and Ali, there's something there from a shared experience. There's something there from the fact that, first of all, Laurel is, in his mind, because of the way things are going, a closed book. She's basically said, we can't go anywhere from here after what's happened. There's a guilt because of what happened with Tommy. So now he's looking at Sarah. Sarah's trying to find her way in the world. She's come back home now. And in many ways, Ali connects with her sense of being disconnected. Because, you know, Ollie doesn't feel like he's back.
No, Ollie's still on the island. You know,
right.
And that part of him will never come back. It's the whole innocence lost. When you have those moments in your life where you lose your innocence, where you lose that part of you, you can never get it back. And Ollie had those experiences.
He connects with Sarah the same way he did Huntress.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. There's something that Sarah can understand as an honesty that he can have with Sarah that he can't have with anyone. He can have that honesty with Felicity, but there's a understanding that's going to come from Sarah that Felicity can't give him. That's not to say that that's necessarily always the right route to go. It's sometimes the differences that make you stronger. And it's one of the reasons why there's something attractive about seeing him with Felicity, because I think her objectivity to what he's gone through is something that is a strength in Felicity's corner. But I completely understood what happened with Ollie and Sarah. I think it's great. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. She's coming back. There's something there between the two of them. There's this sense of her being an outsider with her family. Ollie has that same sense of being an outsider with her family. So there's a lot, and his own. Think about what's going on with his own family right now. So what Sarah's feeling with her sister is the same thing Ollie has to feel with his mom. So there's a lot to connecting these two on the common right now that I think is huge.
Yeah. And just funny, you mentioned Sarah and her sister. That was some of those moments were absolutely wonderful because you've got Sarah coming back into Laurel's life. And instead of Laurel being, oh my God, you're alive, hugging and yay, she's like angry at her and bitter at her, and just because she doesn't know the reasons Sarah was gone. The dad kind of has an understanding with this Assassin's Guild. He doesn't have all the details, but he understands why she was around. To Laurel, it was just Sarah being Sarah, not, taking responsibility, not thinking of her family. And I love the fact that she threw out, you could have called. Maybe mom and dad would still be together. Every negative thing that's happened in Laurel's life, she's throwing it on Sarah now. And I thought that was a neat dynamic where I want to see how that plays out. I want to see how those two get to a better place. Because eventually, I'm assuming Laurel and Sarah are going to get to a better place. And I'm hoping that the Lance family, kind of has some type of coming together and have, we get a happy ending from that family. Because they've had a lot of tragedy. They've had a lot of pain. I want to see some joy for the Lances.
I loved the whole bit with Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Nyssa. And her being brought in, and basically this sense of you don't leave the Assassin's Guild. Basically, Sarah going to the point of realizing, I like that Ollie thought Sarah's going to poison Nyssa. Guess what it's going to bring down in our city? Not realizing that Sarah would poison herself to avoid any danger to her family, which almost backfired in and of itself, because Nyssa was ready to take out revenge on the family.
You'll soon join her in a minute or so. I'm like, oh boy, that's not good. And I love that. But it was funny because when they're talking about the daughter Ra's al Ghul, I'm initially thinking Talia. I didn't now thinking back, I remember reading of stories with, I can't even think which story it was, but there was another story.
It's the Greg Rucka story.
Yeah, that had a different name. So, but I was expecting them to start calling her Talia, and I'm like, wait, Nyssa, what? What? Hold on. So does Raz have more than one daughter? What's going on here?
Yeah, Nyssa was brought into comics, and here's the reason. I'm guessing the reason why they did this is because of the recent Batman trilogy. They're trying to wait and see on bringing up Talia and Raz because they were so prominently featured in those 3 movies.
Yeah,
it was a good choice. It was a way to connect to that with a wink and a nod, while at the same time not disputing that, because they're going to have to make some decisions about how they handle those characters from the Batman universe moving forward. Is the Nolan trilogy canon? Which I'm guessing no. If they're bringing a new Batman in with Ben Affleck, I'm guessing with Ben Affleck, we just talked about in Justice League War, where his origin. This is the basics of what happened. We're continuing after the origin. And here's where he's at now. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be the same Batman from the Nolan films, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is its own separate entity. And again, once I realized that it wasn't Talia, and then I kind of remember there being another daughter, different. I kind of remember Nessa. I'm like, they're pulling this other canon. You're pulling in this other character, making her canon in this universe. They're leaving it open for Talia, but Talia, you get associated with Batman. You get associated with Bruce. So they're going to have a character, not a Ra's al Ghul character, not associated with Batman in this universe. They're going to have Ollie have his own connection to it. And I thought, once I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is good. I like this. This is a neat way to go with it, because the League of Assassins aren't just going to be focused on Gotham. They're going to be focused on the entire world. It's their nature. It's who they are, and everyone will have different pieces of the pie. Now, the part that really I enjoyed the most was the fact that Nessa wasn't just there because no one leaves the League. Nessa was there for personal reasons. Mm-hmm. And a personal relationship with Sarah. I thought that was a neat twist to put on it, because that was another complete shock and surprise. I'm like, what? Oh, cool. That's kind of neat. And again, I loved seeing Sarah's, Officer Lance, his reaction when he realized, when Sarah's explained to her, she came back for me. Oh, the whole League? She came back for me. And he's like, oh, okay, and just it's that momentary reaction that he has, but this is still his daughter. He still is glad she's there. He's still going to try to protect her, do everything he can to help her. And I loved seeing just that moment of click, where the light goes on. It's like, oh, okay.
Are you finding yourself becoming attached to Sarah being Black Canary?
Oh, big time. Big time, and nothing against Laurel. Laurel's awesome, but I hope they don't get rid of. Sarah.
No, I'm with you.
She fits, man, and she fits in this universe, and I really dig seeing her in the costume, and I want to see more of Black Canary doing her thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting how, if you'd asked me in the first season and told me that there's eventually going to be a different person as Black Canary, I would be like, oh, I hope that's going to lead to her eventually being.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sarah's becoming a great character on the show.
I am now so Team Sarah when it comes to her being Black Canary that I could see how they could do it. The only way they could really have Laurel take over is if Sarah either A, had to leave because of the League, but she's kind of been freed so they don't have that, or if they killed off Sarah.
Yeah. That's
the only way Laurel could have it. And both those scenarios I don't want, because I don't want to lose Sarah as a character. I think she's really a powerful. She's got that strong female presence. She's got the training, and it makes sense why she can do what she does, because she was trained by the League of Assassins. She was trained by the most dangerous people in the world to fight. So I understand how she's able to do what she does. Laurel is a daughter of a cop. She's got some self-defense courses. She's got some martial arts knowledge. So, yeah, she can throw down, but she's nowhere on the level that Sarah is trained. And that's part of the reason I wouldn't want to see a replacement of Black Canary. We got a solid Black Canary.
Can I shift to a quick little comic news tidbit? Did you see the info about who's taking over Superman?
No, I did not.
Jeff Johns is taking over writing Superman with John Romita Jr. from Marvel, who's done. You've seen his work on either Spider-Man or X-Men. He's coming over, and he's going to be the artist. They're going to be taking over this summer. The main Superman book. Your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts are woohoo! Nothing to knock the previous writing team and creative teams, because I've been enjoying Superman, but Jeff Johns writing Superman is absolutely outstanding for me. I just think of Up and Away, just how he handled that whole story arc when he was writing in Action Comics. I love his take on Superman, and I love how he looks at the character and looks at the supporting staff and just the people around Superman. That's got me really pumped and excited. But I wonder, what book is this? The book taking the place of Aquaman? Or is he going to lose another one of the books he's working on now?
Well, no, it looks like the two books that he's going to be doing are going to be Justice League still and Superman.
Okay.
He's not going to be doing anything else. Because there's two. There's going to be two Aquaman books, right?
No, I didn't know.
You got to start following the news, buddy. There's Aquaman and the Others is going to be released. There's going to be an Aquaman team book.
Oh, crud. I did not. I really have to start getting on news things and looking at this stuff.
Yeah, because there's
you're my news bulletin, so you got to let me know these things.
Yeah, Jeff John. Obviously we're already reading Aquaman. He's off Aquaman. So the two books. It looks like they're trying to limit him to two books, maybe because of his other duties. I don't know how true that is. You know, you read these tidbits behind the scenes saying that DC's trying to limit him down, but it looks like it's going to be him on Justice League and Superman, which I'm fine with. They've got a lot of talent right now that can be put on other titles. Yeah, I'm with you, where I'm really enjoying the current Superman team. Scott Lobdell, I've been really enjoying what he's been doing on the book. One of the edicts with the New 52 was to get Superman the same level of excitement as Batman, or try to get him up to that level. I don't have a problem with them kind of looking at what's going on with the books, looking at the numbers, and saying to themselves, we need to do something to generate some energy with the Superman title to get it up there. This is a good move. It's if you're going to relaunch your universe with the intention of taking some of your characters that aren't getting that kind of and garnering that kind of excitement, they're making a good move. DC's been pretty aggressive about this. Sometimes there's been some flubs along the way, but that happened with the previous universe, where there's certain books that drop when they're working on other books, if that makes sense. And you've got to kind of keep reworking your universe to try and find the right titles that are clicking with people. I like the experimentation of what they're doing, but cautious experimentation. So I'm excited about the news. I think it's great news.
Yeah, and again, as I said, nothing to knock current creative team. I'm loving Superman. But I do that. Hearing Jeff Johns taking that over has me doing a little happy dance, just because I know how much he loves that character. So, when you get a creator who absolutely loves a character, they're going to kick it up a notch. And there's going to be some really neat stuff coming down the pipeline.
I look at it as an opportunity to continue the evolution of the character. I mean, which, when you do the New 52, Superman, he started off at a certain point that Grant Morrison, reworked. You've got to keep evolving the character to define who he is for this generation, while at the same time putting in all the elements and bits that we know are at the core Superman. I have no problem with a journey to get there. This is part of a journey. So to me, this looks as they're looking at it and saying, okay, we're heading in a direction with the character. We need him to get here in the eyes of our fans. Let's bring on this team to get him here. We haven't done it yet. We need to get him here. I think it's been an upward climb for Superman in a good way. I want to see the continued upward climb. So I'm looking at this creative team as saying, okay, now they're ready. Let's get serious. Yeah. So cool. I'm into it. And with you, with saying I've been enjoying it, I'm enjoying it even more. Let's keep going. Before we wrap up, you said something else you wanted to say about Arrow real quick?
Well, actually, it's just a question I want to throw out there, one to you, and if anybody else wants to comment on, with the fact that the mom is running for mayor. You've got that whole political thing going on, and I start thinking about how, a couple points in time in the comic, Ollie was the mayor of Star City, and kind of wondering it was Star City in the comic books.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
So, but...
because we're talking about the show, I was thinking of Starling.
Right. Yeah. Well, the mom's running for Star City, but I wonder if they're going to shift going that way with Ollie, if they're going to maybe pull Ollie into a political scene or do something that type of style story, because the Ollie Queen that's been in the TV series has been very standoffish, very keeping out of the limelight because of his vigilante styles. Are they opening up? Do you think they're opening up for something of mayor or political candidate Ollie Queen?
I hope not. Not right now. Well, I shouldn't say I hope not. I mean, if they've got a story in place, I'm into it. But for me, right now, I'm enjoying the role he's playing kind of behind the scenes with everything. And I'd like him to keep doing that. That's just kind of my take on it.
And the mom, though. See, because it's a lot of times with these comic universes, the mayors are the bad guys. So with the mom becoming the bad guy and the issues between Ollie and his mom and the previous bad stuff the mom has been involved with, are we looking at a massive heel turn on the mom? Are we looking her to be one of his new bad guys?
I don't know. I don't know on that end. Because she doesn't know that he's the... It could be that she has a reason to go after vigilantes.
Right. Or even just... She starts going bad. Ollie knows it's his mom. The mom doesn't know that it's Ollie fighting her. I'm wondering if they're going to run that kind of storylines.
I don't know. That could be something going on behind the scenes. I think right now there's too much on the plate with what's going on with Deathstroke and all that. That mom clearly is on the good guy side at the moment. Whether or not it remains that way, I don't know. And here's the question. We know that she's open to being manipulated. So what happens? Malcolm Merlyn's still on the table.
Yeah.
What happens there? I don't know.
Plus, she's her own little puppet master. She's
Yeah.
played the game, and she's done a little bit of the dark stuff as well. So she's dabbled her toes in the water. So
Is she evil though? Do you consider her a bad guy?
See, that's the question.
She's a gray area to me. I don't consider her evil.
Yeah, on one hand, I don't consider her evil. I do. It's one of those the best intentions. It's the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and she's got good intentions, but it just keeps going wrong. And then it's what we talked earlier about whether Felicity should or shouldn't have told Ollie. You tell one lie, it leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Well, we add politics in the mix, and you're going to get a lot more lying going on. You're going to get a lot more deception. You're going to get a lot more half-truths out there. So this is going to be, if she wins, big question, but, where does she go? Because I kind of see a heel turn. I see kind of her going evil. And I think that would be an interesting dynamic, considering Ollie is severing his ties.
Why do you see her going evil? I guess what would be the motivating factor on her going evil?
See, that I'm not 100% certain.
I don't see anything as a motivating factor right now for her to become
I would say
evil.
Outside parties. I would say we've got either Merlin coming back, we've got Ra's al Ghul.
But how does that make her? See, I guess Merlin coming back would be more to be sympathetic to her, because even if Merlin manipulates her, you still feel sympathetic to her because she's being manipulated by an outside source. I guess I don't see any of those things as being factors to make her evil. That's the part. I'm having trouble with the idea that I could see her being manipulated. Mm-hmm. I see her more inclined to manipulate situations, though, to protect others, where that's what keeps her a gray area. I see her doing evil things to protect her family, but not being... I see her more staying in the gray area, where every so often you love her and every so often you want to smack her upside the head.
Yeah.
I don't see her as being straight one way or the other. And I actually see... Before I see her going totally evil, I see her more inclined to somehow reconcile with Ollie. I think that'll happen before we see her go evil.
Well, that could, yeah. It's more of a gut feeling I have, and it's also the whole politics thing because a lot of times, as I said, with TV shows, with comic books, your most corrupt people are the politicians. So you get now that she's getting into that political circle. So that's the thing that starts popping in my head. And the other thing you start thinking about is how is she going to win the election? Is she going to win the way she won her trial with a little bit of underhandedness, which she didn't do? She didn't create the underhandedness. That was all Merlin, but it's still, she benefited from the fact that he bought out the jury, the fact that he threw justice out the window and manipulated the situation. If she's mayor, if she wins the mayoral race through dark ways, through negatives, whether it's League of Assassins helping her out, whether it's Merlin helping her out, whether it's another bad guy party, whether it's Deathstroke.
I think you're reading too much into the wrong way. I think what's going to happen is Brother Blood's going to be revealed for what he actually is.
Could be. Oh, definitely.
I mean,
yeah.
Where's the storyline with Brother Blood going? Either he's going to win and he's going to be the evil mayor you're mentioning, or he's going to be revealed and she will win because people see him for what he is. Those are, I think, the two options that are on the table. Now, if she actually becomes mayor after that, is there a possibility that she's the type of mayor that isn't afraid to get involved in some shady stuff because she feels it's what's best for the city? Sure. And that's where I think she'll be a gray area. I don't think she's going to be like this shining... I think there's going to be times where she will bring great things to the city at a price. And that's more of what I see from her, where if she wins, moving forward, there's opportunities where she will get involved in things as shortcuts to maybe improve the city. I don't know. Where Holly be like, you got involved in what?
Yeah.
I think that's more inclined to happen than her be going straight evil. She's somebody who I think will do things for the best intentions. But she's also very smart and savvy, so I don't think she's going to get involved in blatantly stupid things. I just don't. I think that I would like to think that she's learned from a certain extent from her mistakes from the past.
From her mistakes, yeah.
But I think there's going to be some, she's a businesswoman who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty when she thinks it's for the best. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that it's going to be, I don't think anything with that will be that simple. But I think we're more inclined to see Brother Blood revealed or Brother Blood winning and being the evil mayor you're talking about.
Yeah, actually, I'd like, it's, again, as you're saying this, I'm agreeing with you. I think these are very solid. It's something that popped in my head when, as soon as they announced the political candidacy, I started thinking again, second, third, fourth, fifth season down the line, where's this going to play out? And I think that's something about Arrow that I'm enjoying more this season than I did last season, where I'm even thinking farther, deeper, long term. And odds are, I'm going to guess odds are it's going to be Blood wins, and that's the evil mayor, and she loses. But I do like the fact, I like that idea that you have about with he gets exposed, loses the election because of exposure, and then the mom takes over and becomes mayor. Those two storylines, I dig those concepts, and I'd like to see one of them happen.
Yeah. So it's here's the funny part. If she were to turn evil, the one thing I like about this show, let's go off of that theory because you threw that on the table. The one thing I love about this show is if that were to happen, there would be a rich storytelling purpose for it that is only going to pay off for us as fans. It's not going to be done as kind of a quick shock value thing. Nothing is done on this show for quick shock value. Everything, even the smallest thing from the first season, like the mask sitting on the island, is still paying off now.
The arrowhead that Ollie gave Thea when he first came back, that played huge into the current story, because that was that stone they had that hid the secret to where the Miracle was hidden. So that one little artifact that he gave her is something huge later on, the following season. So I thought that, again, any little thing they put there eventually will have a payoff. And I love the fact that we get these payoffs a year later, 6 months later. We get these. It's not just here's this, and now here's why I gave it to you. No, this was episode 1. We get this little talisman. Then episode 13 of season 2, we get the payoff.
Yeah, so I'll say again to people, we're going through, I know we've spent a decent segment on Arrow, but really it hasn't even been an episode worth of content as far as the length of time we've discussed. If you haven't watched the show and you abandoned, you're just kind of like, I'd like to hear what you guys are talking about with it. I can't recommend enough taking the time to watch season 1 and really seeing what they flesh out there, because it's really one of those shows that you may think, wow, we've got a pattern of these certain, people that he's crossing off in the book from the first season, and, I'm just having trouble getting into it. I look at that very similarly what Smallville had for its first season, where it was the Meteor Freak every week, and then the show evolved into something more. This show's doing the same thing, and I honestly think it's moving. I want to be careful with this because I love Smallville, but it's moving at a faster pace than Smallville did as far as evolving the storyline that's going on. And that's not a knock on Smallville. I like that it's not Smallville 2.0. I like that Arrow has its own feel and vibe, and it's a very rich vibe. Smallville did everything it did in a way that I loved it as a fan. But I would also argue that if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I really lost interest in Smallville, there's a reason to stick with Arrow because it does move at a very different speed. I think there's something here for people who maybe didn't get attached to Smallville to give this a chance. So I'm kind of speaking to the people that maybe didn't like that show, and they might find something here. But I also think there's something very rich there for people who loved Smallville, who maybe aren't watching this right now. I just think it's a fantastic show. It's really well done. So I think if you haven't given the show more than a few episodes, do yourself a favor and try to give it the first season. It's so easy to watch it now. I know it's on Netflix. I know a couple of our friends have been mentioning that in the Facebook group, that's the way they're exploring it. And I think it's one of those shows that you just gotta sit down, take a little bit of time to watch it all the way through and kind of see what they're doing. I think you'll get attached to it. if you give it a chance to see what they're doing. Because it's the bigger picture that I think is far more interesting to me than the single episodes. It's the bigger story that's far more interesting to me.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Our next episode, we're going to have voicemails back. Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. My voice has been out this week. I've been sick, actually, for most of this week, which is one of the reasons why the episode was delayed. Because of that, time-wise, we want to get this episode to you now, so we're going to save voicemails for our next show, and we'll do a voicemail catch-up. Please feel free to keep calling. We will air all of the voicemails that we already have in our queue. So please make sure to keep calling. Your new content will still be added onto the show. Speaking of our next episode, Jim, we have some great content. Forever Evil, the newest issue we're going to talk about. Batman, number 27. Are you caught up on that?
Yes.
Harley Quinn, number 2. Joker's Daughter, number 1. And the Earth 2 Annual, number 1. It's a packed episode, but of content. These are just amazing issues. Is there anything else that we want to throw on there?
Ooh, I don't know if we'll have room for it.
Yeah. The content on there is very rich, though. Especially the Earth 2 Annual has the origin of the Earth 2 Batman, which needs to be discussed. But there's so much content in there. The Batman 27, the things that were going on in there, we really need to discuss Forever Evil's happenings. Harley Quinn, because it's a new series, I want to talk about that. And it's been a while since we've been able to talk about a one-shot. Joker's Daughter was a one-shot. I'd like to just talk about, it's a one-shot with a creative team that, I'm not as familiar with, and I really want to talk about what they did in that story. So I think we've got a lot of really rich content there, and it's all comic book based, that episode. So we will talk to everyone about that. Want to remind everyone about our Facebook group. It's Raging Bullets Facebook group. It's over. It's different from our show Facebook page. We have a separate Facebook page. We have a rich community there that's constantly posting news, images, all kinds of things going on with the DC Comics world, but comics in general and pop culture in general. So please join that group. It's a wonderful community of people that's grown well beyond the show. So I wanted to shout that out. We do have a show Facebook page. We have RagingBullets.com, which is our main show website where I post news on what's going on with the podcast and the upcoming episodes. It goes to our Twitter feed. So if you prefer to get your information through Twitter, anytime I post something new to the show website about what's going on with the podcast, I have it tweet right out automatically. So that's a great way if you want to follow our Twitter feed and find out news about the show that way. That also drops directly onto our show Facebook page. So any of those options are a great way to find out about our podcast. New episodes are always posted on our Google Plus page as well. So through whatever social media avenue you like to find out about what's going on about our show podcast, we're there and available for you because we appreciate you guys. And on that note, we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanon Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.